The 1970s British winter was not a season, it was an endurance test. For working-class families across industrial towns and terrace streets, survival meant stretching every shilling, rationing every calorie, and turning scarcity into something edible. The three-day week, power cuts, and inflation transformed kitchens into battlegrounds of thrift. Mothers stood at gas cookers in unheated sculleries, their breath visible in the cold, preparing meals that could feed 6 mouths on less than £1. These were not recipes born from choice or culinary ambition. They were necessities, forged in hardship, shaped by wage packets that never stretched far enough and winters that seemed endless. What filled the plates of Britain's working families during those frozen months tells us more about resilience than any history book ever could. These 10 foods were not luxuries. They were survival itself. Number 1. Dripping on toast. Dripping was the foundation of working-class sustenance throughout the 1970s winter months. Collected from the Sunday roast, often the only joint of meat a family could afford, beef or pork fat was stored in earthenware bowls, solidifying into a pale, savory layer. Spread thick on yesterday's bread and toasted under the grill, it provided cheap, filling calories when butter cost 18 pence per half-pound and wages hovered near £30 weekly. The National Food Survey of 1974 recorded that over 60% of manual worker households consumed dripping regularly. Children ate it before school, fathers took dripping sandwiches to factory floors, and mothers stretched it across the week. It tasted of necessity, of economy, of making the absolute most from the absolute least. For those who remember, dripping on toast still carries the faint smell of survival and coal smoke. Number 2. Spam fritters. Spam fritters appeared on winter tea tables with clockwork regularity throughout the 1970s. A tin of spam cost roughly 25 pence and could feed a family of 5 when stretched into battered slices and fried golden. The Ministry of Food's post-war influence lingered. Tinned meat remained a staple of working-class cupboards decades after rationing ended. Mothers mixed flour, water, and a pinch of salt into batter, dipped the pink blocks, and fried them in lard until crisp. Served with tin peas and mash, spam fritters filled empty bellies cheaply. Children either loved the salty crunch or despised the gelatinous texture. Regional variations existed, some added curry powder, others fried them plain, but the purpose never changed. Spam fritters were edible economy, a protein source when fresh meat remained a weekly luxury rather than a daily expectation. Number 3. Bread and butter pudding. Nothing embodied thrift quite like bread and butter pudding during harsh 1970s winters. Stale bread, otherwise destined for the bin, was transformed into dessert using eggs, milk, sugar, and sultanas. A typical recipe cost under 30 pence to produce and could feed 6 people after Sunday tea. Working-class mothers baked it in chipped enamel dishes, the custard rising around crusts that would have been wasted otherwise. The Ministry of Food had championed such recipes during rationing, and the habit endured into the 70s when inflation made food waste unthinkable. Served warm with a scraping of margarine or a spoonful of condensed milk, it provided sweetness and comfort in homes where central heating remained unaffordable. Bread and butter pudding was not celebration food. It was survival turned tender, waste made warm, economy dressed as kindness. Number 4. Corned beef hash. Corned beef hash stretched a single tin across an entire family meal throughout the 1970s. A standard tin cost around 30 pence and, when mixed with boiled potatoes, onions, and leftover vegetables, became a hot, filling supper. The method was universal across working-class kitchens: fry the onions in lard, add diced corned beef and mashed potato, press it down, and let it crisp. The National Food Survey consistently showed corned beef among the top 5 protein sources in low-income households during this decade. Fathers ate it after factory shifts, children consumed it before homework, and mothers relied on it when pay packets ran thin. Some families added HP sauce, others preferred it plain. Either way, corned beef hash represented resourcefulness in its purest form. Tinned, economical, and utterly dependable when winter nights demanded something hot. Number 5. Liver and onions. Liver was among the cheapest cuts available during 1970s winters, often sold for 20 pence per pound when mince cost double. Offal remained a staple of working-class diets, a holdover from rationing years when nothing edible went unused. Mothers fried sliced liver with onions in bubbling lard, the smell filling damp kitchens and narrow hallways. Children either tolerated it or pushed it around their plates in silent rebellion. The iron-rich meat provided nutrition that working families could barely afford elsewhere, making it a weekly fixture despite its divisive texture and metallic taste. Regional preferences varied, some coated liver in flour, others served it with thick gravy, but economic necessity united them all. Liver and onion symbolized an era when nutrition trumped preference, when survival demanded eating what you could afford, not what you desired. If these memories feel familiar, they're worth preserving. Subscribe to Britain Rewind to keep this history alive for those who remember and those who need to know. Number 6. Scouse or hot pot. Scouse in Liverpool, hot pot in Lancashire, both represented one-pot survival cookery perfected during 1970s winters. These stews combined the cheapest cuts of meat, often scrag end or shin, with potatoes, carrots, onions, and pearl barley. The entire dish could simmer for hours on a low gas flame, filling the house with warmth and smell while costing under £1 to feed 6. The National Food Survey recorded that stews and casseroles appeared in over 70% of working-class meals during winter months. Mothers prepared them on Monday using Sunday's leftover bones for stock, stretching every ingredient across the week. The top layer of Lancashire hot pot, sliced potatoes crisp golden, was fought over at the table. These dishes were not recipes, they were mathematics. They were making 3 shillings feed a family until Friday's wages arrived. Number 7. Tinned macaroni cheese. Tinned macaroni cheese sat in cupboards across working-class Britain throughout the 1970s, a shelf-stable emergency meal when nothing else remained. A tin cost roughly 15 pence and required only heating, no additional ingredients, no preparation beyond opening. Heinz dominated the market, their orange sauce and soft pasta providing instant calories when gas meters ran dry or money disappeared before week's end. Children ate it straight from the saucepan, mothers served it on toast, fathers consumed it cold during night shifts. It tasted of convenience and compromise, of moments when proper cooking became impossible. The texture was uniform, the flavor predictable, the nutrition questionable, but it was there, always there, when winter evenings turned desperate. Tinned macaroni cheese represented the industrialization of poverty, mass-produced sustenance for families living meal to meal. Number 8. Faggots and peas. Faggots, dense balls of minced offal wrapped in caul fat, were standard winter fare throughout working-class Britain during the 1970s. Sold cheaply by butchers or bought frozen from shops like Iceland, they cost approximately 30 pence for enough to feed a family. Typically served with mushy peas and mashed potato, faggots provided protein when proper joints remained unaffordable. The Ministry of Food's wartime emphasis on utilizing every part of the animal persisted decades later in these compressed parcels of liver, heart, and belly pork. Regional variations existed. Mr. Brains dominated the Midlands, local butchers served the North, but the purpose remained identical. Fathers often appreciated them, children frequently revolted, mothers served them regardless. Faggots embodied an uncomfortable truth: survival sometimes meant eating things you'd rather not, accepting sustenance over satisfaction, choosing economy over appetite. Number 9. Condensed milk sandwiches. Condensed milk sandwiches sound impossible now, yet they filled countless school lunch boxes and after-school stomachs during 1970s winters. A tin of carnation condensed milk cost roughly 20 pence and provided sweetness when sugar, jam, and chocolate remained too expensive for daily consumption. Mothers spread the thick, sticky liquid between sliced white bread, creating makeshift treats that children either loved for their cloying sweetness or despised for their texture. The practice emerged from poverty, not preference. Condensed milk offered concentrated calories cheaply, and working families stretched it across the week. Some children ate these sandwiches in school cloakrooms, embarrassed by their simplicity compared to wealthier classmates' packed lunches. Condensed milk sandwiches were survival dressed as sweetness, economy masquerading as kindness, poverty turned into something vaguely resembling pleasure. Number 10. Oxtail soup. Oxtail soup simmered in pots across working-class Britain throughout every 1970s winter, transforming the cheapest bones into hot, nourishing liquid. Butchers sold oxtails for pennies, cuts nobody else wanted, and mothers boiled them for hours with carrots, onions, and pearl barley until the meat fell soft and the stock turned rich. A single oxtail could produce enough soup to feed a family across 2 days, stretched further with yesterday's bread for dipping. The National Food Survey confirmed that homemade soups appeared in over 60% of low-income households weekly during winter. Tinned versions from Heinz or Campbell's offered convenience for 16 pence but lacked the depth of homemade stock. Oxtail soup represented the absolute foundation of survival cookery, taking what others discarded and making it essential, turning waste into warmth. These 10 foods tell a story larger than individual meals or family recipes. They chart an era when working-class survival depended on absolute economy, when mothers performed daily miracles with shillings and pence, when winters were endured rather than enjoyed. The 1970s forced ordinary families into extraordinary resourcefulness, transforming cupboard staples and butcher's scraps into sustenance that kept households fed through Britain's harshest decade. Looking back, these meals carry the weight of memory, the smell of dripping toast, the sight of condensed milk spread thick, the warmth of oxtail soup on frozen evenings. They represent hardship, certainly, but also resilience, ingenuity, and the quiet determination of families who simply kept going. We remember them not with hunger but with gratitude. Relieved these necessities have become memories, preserved now only in recollection and history.